Chairman Nadler, Ranking Member Collins, and members of this committee, thank you for inviting me to testify before you today. My name is Jin Park. I am 23 years old and the son of two loving and hardworking parents. My father, a line cook at a restaurant, and my mother, a beauty salon worker. I'm a recent graduate of Harvard University, and I'm also a New Yorker. I'm a DACA recipient. After the Asian financial crisis in the late 1990s, my parents made the wrenching decision to leave behind the only home they'd ever known in search of a better life for our family. That is how, at 7 years old, I ended up on a plane bound for Flushing, Queens. My first day of school went poorly, mainly because I spoke essentially no English. When my teacher directed a question to me, she might as well have been speaking gibberish. Scared, I grasped for the only English words I could remember and responded with "Home Alone," which I'd picked up from the movie on the plane. And fortunately, my teacher quickly realized the problem and got me into ESL. After several months, I had learned enough English to join regular classes and quickly slipped into the life of a normal New York City public school kid. I spent most of my time after school with friends playing pickup basketball at the courts in the neighborhood. And when my dad learned that baseball was an all-American pastime, he started taking me out to play on the sidewalk in front of our apartment complex. He was a little fuzzy on the rules, and his pitching left something to be desired, but he was determined that his son would not miss out on this American rite of passage. I was always aware on some level that I was different, but as a kid, I was not able to grasp such a weighty concept as citizenship. I would learn eventually. When I was about 15, I went to a hospital to sign up as a volunteer. The administrator I spoke with said she was sorry, but they did not allow illegal aliens. Embarrassed and confused about how to respond, I just mumbled an apology, walked outside, and cried. The hurt of that experience stayed with me until one afternoon in the summer of 2012, when President Obama stood in the Rose Garden and announced a new policy that would allow undocumented immigrants brought here as children to officially have a place in American society. I remember clearly the mixture of relief and growing excitement as I listened to the speech and realized he was talking about kids like me. For 5 years after that moment, the gnawing, ever-present uncertainty that comes from being undocumented slowly faded. In 2017, at the start of my senior year at Harvard, that uncertainty came rushing back as DACA's future was thrown into question, but I was determined to continue pursuing my goals and applied for a Rhodes Scholarship. When I became the first DACA recipient to win the Rhodes, I was overwhelmed with unspeakable gratitude to my parents, my community, and to my country, the United States of America. But right now, there's a major obstacle between me and the Rhodes Scholarship. When DACA was halted in 2017, the guidance that allowed DACA recipients to get advance permission to leave the country to study, work, or visit elderly family members was also terminated. This means that if I leave the country to study at Oxford, I will forfeit my DACA and there will be no guarantee that I can return home to the United States. That's the perpetual reality of being undocumented. No matter how hard I work or what I achieve, I'll never know if I have a place in America, my home. I'm supposed to leave for Oxford in October, roughly 7 months from now, but I feel caught in an impossible position. How can I leave knowing I might not be able to come back to my home, my family, my friends, and the life I've built here for the past 16 years? My proposed study includes field work in Flushing, where I grew up. How can I do that if I can't even get into the United States? And how many others have found themselves at a similar crossroads, faced with an impossibly difficult choice? We know some of their stories, like Mayra Garibo, a DACA recipient studying at California State University who was unable to visit her father in Mexico before he died. And we know of Angel Martinez, a DACA recipient diagnosed with terminal leukemia who had to choose between saying goodbye to his family in Mexico and receiving hospice care in the U.S. Every day that DACA recipients are left in limbo, it inflicts unnecessary pain and suffering and hardship. And it will only get worse if Congress does not take action to provide permanent protection for DACA recipients. The scholarship offers me an extraordinary opportunity, but it does not make me more extraordinary or deserving than other dreamers. Like all dreamers, my family came to this country seeking a better life. My parents desperately wanted to give me opportunities they never had. Like all dreamers, the United States is my home. For many of us, it's the only home we can really remember. I can only hope my testimony shows the need for quick action to permit dreamers to fulfill their potential and contribute to American society. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify today, and I'm happy to answer the committee's questions.
Briefly, as a dreamer and DACA recipients, how do you think about the concept of belonging?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your question. When I think about why this country is my home, it doesn't have anything to do with what I've achieved or that I'm a Rhodes Scholar. Right? I think about the smells, the flavors, and the memories that I have in Flushing, my home. I think about, waiting in one of my mom's beauty salons right after school until she gets off work. I think about the fact that my bodega knows exactly how I like my bacon and cheese. And so these facts about my life are a product of the fact that I have deep, deep connections to this country, and this is my home. And I think, independent of my education or independent of the things that I've achieved, those connections, by virtue of the fact that I'm been constituted in this place that I call home, I think, is what belonging means to me.
What does America mean to you, Mr. Park? Let's start with you.
Thank you, Congressman, for your question. America, to me, it's home, and I don't think that my achievements have nothing to do with the fact that I've grown up here and I've made deep, deep and profound connections to the people and the institutions and to the practices.
Let me ask you what the value of DACA has been to you.
Thank you, Congressman, for the question. When I first received DACA, I remember President Obama walking into the Rose Garden and announcing this program called Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, and I remember that day as being really hopeful, and I think that it allowed me to plan my life in a way that I could really take into account what I wanted to do for this country and for my community.
And you wanted to do good, and I'm sorry to cut you off. I have other questions, but I wanted to point out that you were a child, and now you want to do good.
Yep.
And you are both a Rhodes Scholar and a Harvard graduate. I expect you will do good.
Sometimes I get discouraged about, the discourse and the dialogue around immigration.
Well, please don't. There is hope.
Right. And I think when I do get discouraged, I just look at my father's hands. They're rough and coarse and broken because of the kind of work that my parents do ultimately for me. And I think I stand before you today as a DACA recipient, but my achievements and my ability to have succeeded in America does not exist without my parents. It doesn't exist without the community. And so I think that's important for this committee to consider.
All right. And